Hey, are you getting frustrated that your offers on the property that you want to buy are just getting knocked back? Or worse, you're not even getting a call back from the real estate agents after making the offer. Let me share our process, which you can copy and make sure that every other offer you make from this point onwards is really attractive for the vendors. Now, let's say we want to buy this property right in front of us, which is number 1 Francis Street in Glenwood. It has just been advertised. It looks a really nice 4 bed, 2 bath house with 4 parkings on a nice block of 540 square meter land. And it looks a good property. It has some nice photos in there. As we can see, looks a bit renovated as well, but we have no idea of what the price guide looks like. And it's also on a corner block. So let's start our process. The first thing we need to do is we need to find the recently comparable sales in this area. What do I mean by that? We will actually go into realestate.com.au, or you can use domain.com.au as well. And you can search for properties in Glenwood. Remember, we are trying to do apple for apple search over here. So how we do that? We are looking for properties which have been sold. So we click on the sold section, we search for properties, and all the properties will come up, but we have to filter them out. Because if you're only interested in houses, if you can follow me over here, and for the houses we are interested now, the key over here is we are interested in properties which have been sold recently. And what I suggest is that you start the search in the last 3 months to begin with. And if you can't find enough comparables, then you probably go to 6 months as well. We are looking for houses with at least 4 beds because that is what we are looking to buy. And we are looking to compare with houses which have at least 400 square meter of a land size. So once we hit search, and now we have all different results which we would like to see on the map. So I will click on this map thing, if you can see over here, and I'll share the reason with you now. So our target property, 1 Francis Street, is, I'll actually zoom in if you can see the screen now. Yep, so our target property is over here, 1 Francis Street, right? Now we have to find properties which are close enough to this. So if you notice, there are some properties over here which have been sold recently in Glenwood. There are some other properties which are outside of Glenwood, let's say over here in Kings Langley, right? But that's a different suburb, even though they are close to this property over here, but that falls in a different suburb. So we try to find the properties in the same suburb, because as soon as we change the suburb, the prices vary, right? So we have to, even in the same suburb, let me tell you one more thing over here. You see this road over here, Norwest Boulevard. So if you go on the northern side of Norwest Boulevard, this area is also Glenwood, but the price point is different over here because this is a different pocket of Glenwood. And the pocket over here, which is down south, is more desirable. The property prices are slightly more higher because there's more demand for properties over here. People want to live in this area more as compared to the northern side of Norwest Boulevard. So even in the same suburb, but you need to find and pick the right comparables. How can you know which pocket is good or which pocket is not good? You can just call the local property managers and they can give you an insight of which pockets are good to buy at a particular suburb, right? So we click on this one and we find this. So this 6 Medici Place in Glenwood. Then we have other property, just 2 Scenic Grove, Glenwood. Number 3 Montview Way in Glenwood, if you can see it, right? And then we have another one which is 17 Montview Way in Glenwood. So what we have done is we have opened all of them here, and I'll just quickly share them with you. So first thing we need to do is we need to capture whatever their features are into a quick spreadsheet, right? And the features we are capturing are for the properties which are close to our desired or our target property. So this is the spreadsheet that I want to run you through. You can do it as well. It's pretty straightforward. So this green row over here is our target property, and we have mentioned the address. We have identified how many bedrooms are there, bathrooms, and car parks. Sorry, this is for car parks, right? For parking. We have populated it for the target property, and similarly we have populated for other properties which are our comparable ones, these 4, right, which we have just identified. Now the main thing over here is that we have to quickly identify which one is our closest comparable, because we will use all our analysis based on that, right? So for us to identify that, we need to fill this table very quickly, and most of this information is available on the real estate app for all those sold properties. You can also find the sold date for the property. You can also find what price it was sold for right in front of it. So I've just populated it from there. Couple of things which are not on real estate is the date when that particular property was built, right? So this is the date that you can actually call the real estate agent who sold the property, and you can get it of them. Likewise, you can also get the internal floor area, like, okay, the actual block size, for example, for 6 Medici Place was 419 square meter, which we can see over here as well. 6 Medici Place, 419 square meter, right? If it's clear enough. But what we are interested in is the actual floor plan. And where do I get this information? So the actual floor area or covered area plus the actual build date is something the real estate agent can tell you, or you can get that information from CoreLogic as well if you have the subscription. As soon as you populate this, you have to try and find the closest possible comparable. And the closest possible comparable in all the, as compared to this target property of ours which we are trying to buy, is number 2 Scenic Grove. Because if this one, the land size is closest, as you can see, all the other properties have been sold for much smaller lot sizes, like 419, 450, and 450 for this one as well. But this one is the closest with 600. The internal area, very important parameter that defines the value of a property. That is also 286 square meter for this comparable. However, the target property is at 300 square meter built area, which is very close to 286. So we identified this one as our closest comparable, even though it has one extra bedroom, but we will cover that in a minute. And as soon as we pick it up, we highlight it and we mark it in a different color, right? So all our analysis moving forward is now going to be based on this particular property. All of the comparables, we will ignore them and we will only focus on this particular property. Now, what we need to do is we need to compare these two properties with each other very carefully, right? How we do that? We go back to realestate.com.au. We open 2 Scenic Drive and we first look at the layout. So this is the layout of 2 Scenic Drive, really nice floor plan, a formal lounge followed by kitchen, then a family room at the back, separate dining, and they also have a downstairs bedroom next to the double garage, which they call their bedroom number 5, right? Pretty nice. And on the top floor, on the first floor, they have the 4 bedrooms with really good sized bedrooms, big master bedroom, and also an ensuite with a bit of a living area or rumpus. So that is a nice layout to have. Now we compare that layout with 1 Firenze Street, the target property that we are buying. And if you look at that layout, it's kind of not very different. The only difference is that over here in number 2 Scenic Drive, the front lounge was converted into a bedroom. That's how they had 5 bedrooms. However, there they have converted into a study. So even though the bedrooms are 5 in the other property, but that does not add any specific value into the property. They just installed a couple of walls, put a door, and created a bedroom out of it, right? Apart from that, the layout is pretty much the same as the other property. So the layouts are very comparable as well, which gives us the confidence that this is our right comparable. Now, the next thing that we need to look at are the pros and cons. Like, what are the features which are different from one property to the other? Now, if you look very closely, this particular property, which is our target property, let me go back to the spreadsheet actually, and that will give you make more sense. 2 Scenic Grove, it has an entertainment deck. So what I'm trying to do now is we'll try to pick out the features in every property and see what is the value associated with that particular feature, right? If you look at 2 Scenic Grove, it has 2 important things. First of all, let me go to 2 Scenic Grove, right? First of all, it has a brick construction, a brick veneer construction, which is always more expensive as compared to a masonry or a concrete construction. The property we are trying to buy at 1 Firenze Street, it has a masonry construction. So if you look at front photo, it is a concrete construction, right, in this photo. So it is not a brick construction, which is why the other property has an inferior feature, has a superior feature, sorry. Our comparable is superior in terms of its construction quality. Other important thing is that this has a pergola and entertainment deck at the back. So what we have done is, if we go in the spreadsheet, we can say we are putting pros and cons in these 2 columns, right? And pros and cons as all the pros in the comparable property as compared to target property. So yes, it has an entertainment deck, right? And because it has an entertainment deck, that means that potentially that is a value out of $35,000, right? Now, how do we know this number? That is based on experience, or you can have a chat with any builders if you know, or any renovators, and they can give you some kind of information. Likewise, it's a brick construction as compared to a masonry construction. So 2 Scenic Drive, as I said, because it's a brick construction, it's a bit more expensive, right? So that is 40 grand coming for there as well. So these two features means that this property is slightly, these two are in superior features as compared to our target property. But then there are some other features which are not as good. For example, let me quickly open up. Let me quickly share this with you, right? Okay. For instance, now this is the flooring. The flooring is a bit old. If you compare the flooring with 1 Firenze Street, the flooring looks very nice, pretty decent, right? It looks recently renovated for the flooring. So I've given 20 grand. So the comparable property is 20 grand inferior on the flooring side. So that's a con for that, right? Likewise, if you look at the kitchen, so the kitchen is superior in this target property, which means the comparable property has a kitchen which is inferior as compared to this. And if we have to improve that, we will have to spend another 15-20 grand. So hence why I've put that 20 grand over here for the kitchen. If you can see this spreadsheet, right? So I put 20 grand over here for the kitchen, 25 grand in fact, right? Likewise, so what I'm doing is all the things which are available in the target property, they are serving as an added feature, or they are serving as a con or as a negative point as compared when we look in the in our comparable property, because it is missing in that property, right? So there are some features which will be in the comparable property, some features which will be missing in the comparable property. So the whole idea of this exercise is that we put these numbers together based on our experience, and we say, okay, at the end of the day, in terms of pros and cons, how much one property is actually really inferior as compared to the other. So we come up with the scenario where our target property is 95 grand superior or better as compared to our comparable property. So the net difference of these two amounts is 20 grand, which is sitting right over here. So we'll come back to this 20 grand in a minute, but that's the difference between these two, 75 grand and 95 grand, right? Hopefully it makes sense. Now there are other ways of comparisons as well. This is something that we do, so I'm just sharing how we do it. Now there was another difference in this in these two properties. The target property has a land size of 540 square meter, but the 2 Scenic Grove, which is our comparable property, has a land size of only 600, or is slightly bigger. It's 600 square meter. So there's a difference of 60 square meter. Now we have to make sure, because our target property is slightly smaller, what impact will that have on price? So what we did was, we actually looked around. If I show you in maps, what we did was we went around and tried to find some recently sold land in the area of, like if I try and find land, let me filter for land over here. I'm trying to find land which has been sold, not the house, not in map area, but in Glenwood, right? In the last, let's say, even 12 months, with no bedroom, of course, now, and no bathroom, any land size of more than 400 square meter. So if I try to make that search and I click search, there has been nothing sold in Glenwood. If you can see over here, nothing has been sold in Glenwood, in this suburb, in this triangular area, in the last 12 months. So how do I get the land value? So my next best estimate is that I go and look in the surrounding areas. I can see there have been some lands which have sold in the neighboring areas like Bella Vista. So I click on this and I see Bella Vista at number 43, Ernesta Place, Bella Vista. The land was sold for 2.64 mil. It was a 716 square meter land. So I calculated the per square meter cost by dividing this value by 716. That gives me per square meter cost. Then I will start the law of averages. So I will probably do a couple of other comparisons as well. This is another piece of land, 2.2 million, right? And if I look at this one, this sold for 1 square meter, sold for 2.2 mil. So I did my basic averages and saw what is the per square meter rate of land which is around Glenwood, if I can't find something in Glenwood itself. So I did that calculation for suburbs around Glenwood, Bella Vista on the eastern side, then I had Lalor Park on the southern side, Kellyville on the northeast, and then Marion on the west northwest side. So I came up with these average prices for per square meter land in all these four suburbs which are surrounding Glenwood. That's very important. I have to be around this target area, and I just took a simple average of that. And the average per square meter cost of land only, not only land, in Glenwood has come around $2,100 per square meter. Now you may differ to it. You may have your own way of doing it. That's perfectly fine. But I'm just trying to come to a practical value of what we can actually offer for this property, right? So per square meter cost is $2,152, and this lot is, as you saw, 60 square meters smaller as compared to the comparable property. So what we do is now we are doing some adjustments. So our closest comparable property that sold in March, actually, the 𝐸𝐶 Grove, that was for 1.7 mil and 20,000. So 1 mil, $720,000. Now we will adjust. Now that was a bigger land. It was on 600 square meter. Our target one is smaller on 540. So what we are doing is our per square meter cost that we identified, we just multiplied that per square meter cost for Glenwood land over here, 2152. We just multiplied by 60. So we know because of a smaller lot, this is how much the price should go down, which is $129,000 if you can see it, right? Then for the pros and cons, we did some adjustment over here. We can say that our property is 20 grand net superior as compared to the comparable property. So we add that 20 grand over here, and we come up with the target value of our target property to be 1.6 mil and $10,000. Now there's some adjustments that still need to happen. The latest, and that is very important, a lot of people miss out on that. Now the comparable that we are comparing against actually sold, if you go back to the date over here, that sold on 25th of March, right? So that was like 3 months from now. We are in mid-June right now. So what that means is that in the last 3 months, we need to know how much Glenwood market has moved. And I can tell you the Glenwood market has moved by 4% since that last property was sold. So we will need to add 4% on top of this price. So we come up to 1.675, right? Now, if you are an owner occupied, you need to listen this very carefully. You have to live in this property for a long time, right? Probably for the next 10, 20, 30 years. You are seeing yourself grow, your family grow, your kids grow over here, your kids going to school. You're just calling this area your home, right? So there's an owner occupier factor over here as well, which pretty much depends on how much you want to live in this area. So remember, who are you competing against as well? You are competing against other owner occupiers, right? Who want to buy the same house, who want to live in the same street. It's a quiet street, really nice area. So you need to understand how much you're willing to pay for this property, right? So usually when you're looking as an owner occupier, there's an adjustment factor that we will include in the price to make our offer really competitive, which can be anywhere between 2 to 4% based on how much you're willing to pay. In this case, I have put it down as 3% because that is what we have used for one of our clients. And that 3% on top of this price means that our base price of what we will be offering is 1.725 million for this property in today's age. Now, this is our price point that we want to offer, but there are situations where people are like, oh, if I knew I can pay extra 10 grand, I would have gone for that, right? So I always ask my clients, and I will also want you to ask yourself, if you're doing it yourself, what is your walkaway price? What is the price after which you will say, no, I'm not bidding at auction anymore. This is my price. I will just walk away from there and I will not feel frustrated or lost out. So in this case, I put another 2% on top, and this is completely up to you how much you want to put. If you don't want to put anything, that's perfectly fine as well. This 1.725 can be your walkaway price as well. But it's a question you need to ask yourself, how much extra I'm willing to pay, because I'm not doing it for a short investment. I'm there to live for a longer period of time, and there are some things which are really hard to put a value on. So for me, I would say anywhere from 1.725 mil up to 1.76 mil is the right market value for this property. Now, how you start making an offer, where do you start making an offer? It really comes down to how you're discussing with the agent, what questions you are asking, what is the situation of the vendor, what information you have been provided by the agent. And if you ask the right questions, you will know that whether your first offer should be 1.725 or whether it should be 1.715 or whether you should probably start making an offer from 1.74. But regardless of which offer you make, now you have the bracket in which you can play around and you would know when to stop and you will not feel guilty or left out at, oh, I missed out again. So that fear of missing out is something you can really take control of if you follow this method. Let me know your feedback. If you want to know, and if you know more of these videos, please let me know, hit me up, and I would love to share more of this content with you. Happy hunting, happy buying.